I have absolutely no idea why I'm filming through a jail cell right now, but I am. The week one 49ers, the entirety of that team was one of the most strange. Hey, I don't even have a background here. I'm gonna look up something. Who's a cool rapper? Oh, I'm seeing this guy actually. When you see this video, it'll probably be the day of. Um, he's he's pretty cool. Check him out. But I'm seeing him at Minnesota. Come through, guys. Anyways, the 49ers week one was one of the most strange cases of everything that I've ever seen, and so I did a lot of research, and I want to give my take on guys like Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk, Trey Lance, all of the above, because they're all really interesting, and I don't know what happened, and Trey Sermon as well. So I mean, let's just get into it. So essentially, what happened was Mostert gets hurt. He's out for the year, and that means there's a vacancy at running back because Trey Sermon was a healthy scratch in week one, which left Elijah Mitchell to be on top of the depth chart, and he was a monster, predictably. He's essentially a Mostert clone, and he comes in and he dominates the snap share on a really really good offense for running backs. This is just the rundown. Then I'll get into specifics. So Brandon Aiyuk, he started on everybody's fantasy team, but put up 0 points on 0 targets. He didn't play. And afterwards, it was indicated that it was because of a hamstring rather than play. But he said that Trent Sherfield outplayed him in camp, which I'm 100% buying into. Shanahan said that he wanted to get Aiyuk snaps, but it happened to be a blowout because the Niners were kind of kicking ass, and it's really hard to make something out of this. Deebo goes insane. He's like wide receiver 3 right now, or 2 on the year. He has like 200 yards and touchdown. It was nuts. So let's start there because after seeing Deebo and Jimmy Garoppolo go off again, I took a look back at Deebo as a rookie because he was kind of good as a rookie. And as a rookie, Deebo was wide receiver 31 rather, in 15 games. So I mean, solid performance. You're probably starting him a couple weeks there, but he down the stretch when you were in the playoffs, weeks 10 through 17, he was indeed wide receiver 9 overall, with over 16 points per game in fantasy. So that is an every week elite starter that you're putting in and getting elite numbers every single week. So Deebo has flashed elite play as a yak monster, and this is without scoring many touchdowns at all. He only has, I believe, 8 touchdowns in his entire career, 6 of them coming, maybe 5 of them coming in that stretch. So it was just like consistent production, Deebo being a stud. But let's go back to last year. So Deebo was limited last year, but let's go back to the weeks where both Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk played. So they played in week 4 versus Philly. Aiyuk had 13 points. Here, I'm just going to round them to the nearest whole number. Aiyuk had 14 points. Deebo had 8 points. And then week 5 in Miami, they both sucked. Aiyuk had 7, Deebo had 4. Then week 6, Aiyuk had 9, Deebo had 18. So if you're keeping score at home, it's essentially 1-to-1 with a dud for each of them. Then Deebo on a 62% snap share puts up 12 points, and Aiyuk puts up 17.5. So Aiyuk obviously better, but not by much. Then in week 12, Deebo goes off for 24, but Brandon Aiyuk doesn't play. In week 13, Aiyuk goes off for 21, and Deebo puts up 14. So what you see here is Aiyuk being slightly better, but not by much. And this came from not a lot more touchdown luck. Deebo has not been a prolific scorer of touchdowns, but I'm counting a touchdown luck because touchdowns are still inherently very random. But that being said, Aiyuk was incredible last year, actually, on a per-game basis. And as we look at his splits, in weeks 7 through 15, he was wide receiver 3 overall, with almost 21 points per game, just trailing Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams, actually being better in weeks 7 through 15 than Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, every stud ever. And he was wide receiver 12. No, he was wide receiver 35 in 12 games with 15.4 points per game overall. So that is a truly elite rookie season, and that's pretty awesome. So breaking down these two in the future, I think Aiyuk is startable as early as next week. I think it was merely a hamstring and nothing more, and we have seen him be elite a truly historically elite fantasy producer as a rookie. So I mean, I think he comes in and he's never a starter. But same goes for Deebo. I feel like he was going under the radar. He was going as a wide receiver 3-4 versus Aiyuk going as a mid wide receiver 2 towards the end of this of the process. And Deebo he's been worse than Aiyuk, but it's been by percentage points. They've essentially been the same player, just Deebo being slightly worse at every stage of his career. But I mean, even at that point, if Aiyuk is wide receiver 2, Deebo should be a wide receiver 3, not like anything less. So I mean, go ahead and buy Aiyuk if his owner is panicking. And you can comfortably play Deebo, especially with Jimmy Garoppolo. You can comfortably play Deebo until further notice. If Aiyuk takes a step forward and kind of phases Deebo out, then so be it. But I mean, like as of right now, they're both startable. But I do prefer Aiyuk slightly in season long, although Deebo is very undervalued. Now going on to George Kittle, it was very concerning because the Niners scored a lot of touchdowns, and Kittle didn't do much. He had 5 targets. For I believe 12 or 11 points, which is, I mean, that's not a bad game for Kittle, but it's nothing special. But I think this raises a bigger question: can Kittle be in the first tier of tight ends going forward? Last year, he ran just 44% of his routes from the slot or outside. For reference, Kyle Pitts in Week 1 ran 80% of his routes in the slot or outside. Shout out Ian Hartitz. So Pitts is essentially a full-time receiver. Kittle is essentially a half and half receiver, half and half blocker. And we get that that Kittle is a great talent, but he's too good of a blocker to be an elite tight end, in my opinion. Going forward, I didn't have it ranked this way. Like full disclosure. Going into the year, but going forward, I think it's Kelsey and Waller, relatively close at the top, and then a big drop off to a 4-man tier really with Kittle, with Pitts, with Andrews, and with who's the last guy, Hawkinson, that I'm looking for. And it's I hope I'm recording. That would really suck if I'm not recording. Okay, good. I do that like every time, but going forward, it's hard to see Kittle being that elite because he's proven time and time again that he breaks efficiency, but he's proven time and time again to be too good of a blocker to be anything more than just a tier below the top guys in fantasy. So and I mean given that with a potential Aiyuk resurgence, with Trey Lance coming in and maybe having less passing volume, and with the injuries that Kittle has faced in recent years, I think he is firmly in the second tier now of tight ends, as opposed to tier 1. So that being said, those are the pass catchers. Now going on to the running backs. Trey Sermon is an objectively bad prospect. Always has been, always will be. Elijah Mitchell is arguably a better prospect in a vacuum for fantasy football. So this is not surprising to anyone that was paying attention to them in college. However, it was very surprising when you look at 3rd-round draft capital versus 6th-round draft capital. That makes no sense to me that he was a scratch. But that can mean one of two things, right? That can mean, hey, we probably don't need you. We probably won't need you because we have Raheem Mostert and we have a Mostert clone backing him up. We're playing a pretty bad team. We're just going to let you rest here, learn the offense, see what's going on, which doesn't make too much sense to me because why would he be inactive at that point, right? I mean, we were expecting him to like be the 1A, 1B to Mostert. Or this could mean Elijah Mitchell was better than him in camp and practice, which makes perfect sense because Elijah Mitchell is indeed the better player prospect-wise. That makes more sense to me. That's what Stick thought on our podcast. If that's the case, there's no room for Trey Sermon on the Niners because Mitchell is a better player. He's a Mostert clone. He fits the offense well. Sherman's just slow. He gets bullied out touches. He's not a good prospect. It never has been, never will be. And I'm very, 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 very worried if I am owning Trey Sermon. I'm keeping him around just for the 3rd-round draft capital, just because he could play, but he's not a good prospect. And like I get that running backs don't matter because like I say that all the time. So if Mitchell and Sermon get 15 touches in the game, they'll probably produce similarly because it's not hard to be a running back in the NFL. But it just depends who gets the touches. And at this point, I'm a little bit more confident in Mitchell getting touches. I mean, just given what we saw last week, given Mostert has had a success, and they're a very, 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 very similar archetype of player, and that Sermon kind of sucks. We've known this. I mean, the third round draft capital is very, very strange, so I wouldn't be surprised if he sees the field. But, I mean, at this point, it's essentially a toss-up as to who gets the ball. I don't see anybody else coming in. I mean, like, obviously, we could have, like, Jermichael Hasty, who's a solid prospect. But I think from what we saw last week, it's going to be Mitchell or Sermon. And I lean Mitchell just slightly. I have a lot more excitement towards Mitchell. I threw a claim at him, number 1 overall. You can throw 30% fab. I mean, this is like past fab, but like you get the point. Like I'm pretty bullish on him. And as for Sermon, it's really interesting. I'm not interested in him at all. I never have been because he's not a good prospect. But if he does get touches, you got to play him because the running backs don't matter, and he's going to be in that offense. Moving on, because I need to watch this fucking game. It's halftime right now. Trey Lance looked good. Jimmy Garoppolo looked decent. This is the only problem. Lance is going to be really good when he's there because he has a plethora of weapons and he can run, and he has a great coach, and he's going to be awesome for fantasy when he's there. But I don't see Jimmy Garoppolo fucking up that bad. I mean, he was good. He was efficient without Brandon Aiyuk, without Trey Sermon, with Kittle not getting much action. If Garoppolo is forced to use all of his weapons at his disposal, I mean, with a relatively easy schedule and a good defense, I don't see much adversity coming for Jimmy G soon, which is gonna make it hard for him to be benched. But whenever Lance is in there, I mean, he's gonna be awesome. So if Lance gets dropped in the next couple weeks, pick him up because he's gonna be a top 10 quarterback likely once he takes over. But I mean, until then, Jimmy G is a viable streamer. I mean, we have Deebo and Aiyuk, Yak monsters. We have a pair of good running backs and a great coach, and obviously George Kittle, who is the ultimate X factor, one of the best players in the NFL on a per touch basis. So I mean, that's what I think right now with the Niners. It's very interesting, and I'm very interested to see how week 2 goes. So that being said, have a good day, and tell someone that you love them today because that would be nice. And